All right. Let's look at slide number 3. See what it says here about the spreading of the Jews. Professor Emeritus of Judaism at the University of Wales, Dan Cohen-Sherbuck, wrote, "The paradox of Jewish life is that hatred and Jewish survival have been interrelated for thousands of years, and that without anti-Semitism, we may be doomed to extinction." In other words, that's an exaggeration, but the idea is that, well, I'm just going to read the rest. Today, many Jews are still trying to assimilate into their host cultures. But for all the apparent success in some countries, history shows that it has never succeeded, and the Jewish task mandates that it never will. Precisely, that's because... What?
It's working now.
It's working now, good. That's because the idea is that the Jews will end up being a role model of unity. So there has to be a distinct group to which the world looks for answers. And they have to provide those answers. And therefore the Jews cannot disappear now. But if they don't do what they have to, if they don't provide the answers, then they suffer. Then they are afflicted and persecuted and whatnot. Look at slide number 4. We talked about what happens when the Jews try to assimilate too much. Try to disappear. Jane S. Gerber, an expert on Sephardic history at the City University of New York, eloquently details the extent to which Spain's Jews and conversos are Jews who converted into Christianity, immersed themselves in Spain's secular and cultural life. The emphasis are the editors. That's me. Deeply rooted in the Iberian Peninsula since the dawn of their dispersion, writes Gerber, these Jews had fervently nurtured a love for Spain and felt a deep loyalty to her language, regions, and traditions. In fact, Spain had been considered a second Jerusalem. What's wrong with being loyal to the country you live in? Nothing, of course. But you cannot be disloyal to your task, because your task is what you will eventually have to fulfill. This is what you owe the world as a Jew. And unless you do it, you cannot be. This is why Churchill said. We read it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. He said, "I believe a Jew cannot be a good Englishman unless he's a good Jew." Meaning what? If we provide unity to the world, solidarity, mutual responsibility, which the world so badly needs today, we're welcome everywhere. If we don't, we are rejected everywhere. So there's this, I'd say, universal quality to what the Jews have to provide. And a lot of people talk about the universal nature of Judaism. Let's continue with Professor Gerber's quotes. Look at slide number 5. When King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella's decree of expulsion was promulgated on March 31, 1492, ordering the 300,000 Jews of Spain to leave within 4 months, the Sephardim reacted with shock and disbelief. Surely, they felt, the prominence of their people in all walks of life, the sheer longevity of their communities, and the presence of so many Jews and Christians of Jewish ancestry, conversos, yes, in the inner circles of the court, municipalities, and even the Catholic Church, could provide protection and divert the decree. Slide number 6, please. Spanish Jews were especially proud of their long line of poets whose songs continue to be recited. Their philosophers had been influential even among the scholars of the West. Their innovative grammarians had earned a lasting place as pioneers of the Hebrew language, and their mathematicians, scientists, and innumerable physicians had won acclaim. Notice how similar this is to what is happening today. How many Jewish Nobel Prize winners we have. Their resourcefulness and public service of Sephardic diplomats also filled the annals of many Muslim kingdoms. In fact, they had not just resided in Spain. They had coexisted side by side with Muslims and Christians, taking the notion of living together, la convivencia, that's what they called it, with utmost seriousness. Notice how similar it is to what is happening today in the global Jewish community, and notably in the American Jewish community, in the U.S. especially. Look at slide number 7, please. The experience of Sephardim raises the issue of acculturation and assimilation as no other Jewish community has. For many centuries, Jewish civilization borrowed freely from the surrounding Muslim culture. When persecutions overwhelmed the Sephardim in 1391 and they were offered the choice of conversion or death, the numbers of converts outnumbered the considerable number of martyrs. The very novelty of this mass conversion, unique to Jewish experience, has induced scholars to seek causality in the high degree of acculturation, meaning assimilation, attained by the Sephardim. In other words, basically what she's pointing at is that there's only so much you can assimilate. But in Spain, in Spain, it was still a matter of the continuation of the dispersion. Many Jews were killed, but they weren't destroyed as a people. Instead, they were expelled. They were chased to other countries in Europe, and they were chased to the Ottoman Empire, where the Emperor Bayezid II was delighted to receive them. He welcomed them. He even laughed at King Ferdinand, saying, how can he call him a wise king if he sent away his best citizens? So he welcomed them into Turkey. And that was a continuation of the dispersion. We could see very similar forebears, harbingers of what happened in Spain in 20th century Germany.